Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Friday Food Fight. Our very special guest for this week. Bart, tell us who we're going to be meeting with.
Wes is one of her group a few years back in Fort Worth. And Jocelyn is the Child Nutrition Program's team lead and National School Lunch Program content specialist for the Education Service Center, Region 11 in Fort Worth, Texas. Now, what that region does is they support 10 counties' child nutrition program with agriculture as a state-level content expert for the education team, creating, revising, and updating. Jocelyn also has got a bachelor's in science. Excuse me. I said Jocelyn's also get it. They realize, this is like one of the most rewarding things. But I know you earned your bachelor's in nutrition from the University of Minnesota. And are you from Minnesota?
I grew up in Minnesota.
What part?
Yes, sir.
And I know you got your MBA from Texas University. Your joy and your passion is supporting child nutrition programs by connecting operators with tools and resources that are available, which I think is turns at Baylor University Medical Center and also at TCU. And I know there's a lot of people that are looking into child nutrition and realize what a great position it is. And trying to develop a little bit of a green thumb, he tells me, and planting some things around his house. So, but anyway, it's great to have you on the show. I really appreciate you.
I will tell you, I started my third set of seeds this year. And Now that I'm getting blossoms on my pumpkin, cantaloupe, watermelon, squash.
Well, I'll give you a little bit of advice. My mom, the deer were eating her flowers. And so she went to Ace Hardware and bought this deer repellent spray, sprayed it on her flowers, killed
her chili powder. I have chili powder all around it right now.
So anyway, that's it.
I have recently, as Southern California, so we've been on lockdown, if you will, for quite some time. And, you come up with threat to my garden as opposed to the deer in your garden. The biggest threat to my garden was me because I did not really knowledge of gardening, decided to go outside with a big thing of Morton salt and sprinkle it all over everything to try and get rid of. So now I've been trying to revive my garden because I quickly started back at zero.
Cilantro, my first bounty this weekend. I was like, it's from my garden. I was so proud. And the kids were proud,
Yeah. she wants some fresh fruits and vegetables. So she's, asking me every day, did you water it? Did you fertilize it? So she's on top of it. And so I'd love to talk with you a little bit about kind of this new era of training that school nutrition professionals are going to be quickly propelled into to start this upcoming school year. Graham should consider for back to school this year.
Well, first, I don't think I had a chance to thank you guys. So thank you for having me on today. We have 500, 600, 700 people come to our conference at the beginning of the summer. And so first of all, we have to remember of all the things that are changing around us remotely, it's the same concepts, right? You have to know your audience, get to know who they are, what are they, that one in a minute, but also plan an engaging experience. We have all set on trainings in person and knowledge to their job. So I'm going to dive into those a little bit deeper, but I want to make a point of virtual training so we're doing a virtual training. We might be recording it as a webinar, but we are facilitating it live. Online class, it's self-paced for the participant, and they are doing the training on their own completely. They can go start to finish without interacting with an instructor or facilitator at all. So when we're looking at those two words, that's kind of how we distinguish between virtual and online. So our audience is special and specific, right? We have to know, do they have internet access? Do they have a computer? Are they going to be taking their training on their cell phone? Because when it's real small, they're not going to see handouts very well. And then over communicate, help them feel comfortable with this new environment. Send them how-to videos or maybe a user guide to the platform you're going to use in advance so they can feel comfortable with where are we going? What are we doing? Where do I click? What do I do? What time is it being held? So over communicate those things. And that's another benefit of the online piece. You can give them all of that in advance. You don't have to take training time to do that. you can give it to them before you even start. And then consider recording a virtual welcome. So you don't have to do a welcome face-to-face. You could record that in advance. It could be from your superintendent or maybe your child nutrition director, a special guest speaker, the mayor, anyone who might be able to welcome them back to the school year. Sounds like a really fun opportunity you could do in advance. You could also tailor those to your individual audiences, your elementary schools, your middle schools, or your high schools. So knowing your audience is still key, whether you're virtual or face-to-face. And then planning that engaging experience, making sure that you're thinking about activities. If we're face-to-face, we're going to do a tabletop activity. Well, some virtual platforms, you can break folks into breakout sessions. So they can still have that opportunity. Build in polls, quizzes, Q&A. Let them, utilize what is in front of them for the technology to help it stay engaging. And then I always say pre-record the main thing. Keeping the main thing is going to be the same whether I say it in person or I record it in advance. So I always write a script and I make sure I have every detail that I want them to capture and I record that in advance. The cool thing is then when I'm playing that, I can answer the Q&A in the chat at the same time because it's already being recorded and they're just watching the recording. They don't know it's recorded. They think I'm presenting right in front of them. So that's definitely a tip that I would definitely share. And then have a co-host. Do not pretend that you can manage all of the things by yourself. There's screens, there's, speakers, there's people like doing their hair or eating something. You need a friend who can mute them, turn their video off, answer questions for you. You also want to give folks a phone number. If they're having a problem, they don't want to go through some guide to figure out how to get their sound working. So have a co-host, have them help you with attendance, all those things behind the scenes. You do not have to do it yourself. And I would not recommend that you do.
Right. Well,
okay,
I could definitely, go for it.
Okay. My last thing on that was just, it's gotta be useful. It's not knowledge. It's kind of like food, right? It's not nutrition until it's in their body. Well, it's not a successful training unless they're applying that knowledge to their job. So we really want to make sure that what we're providing for training, they can take it on the job. So that's really knowing your audience again, back to the first one.
Yeah.
And then I would say build in something that you can check that. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I love all these points. You've covered a lot of different areas, and I've got so many. I've been sitting here taking notes. I've got so many questions for you. In no particular order, all the tips you gave, I could not agree with you more, especially with the complexity of some of these meetings and how you want to structure them with the polling and multiple guests and, really having that co-host to help organize and structure all of that and make sure it runs smoothly. Here, that aren't familiar with all of this, and maybe even their co-host isn't going to be very familiar with kind of managing and doing all these things. What type of advice can you give to folks that might not feel comfortable behind or in front of a camera and maybe don't feel comfortable doing all of these virtual meetings? What would you recommend to them to really help them to gain that confidence so that they can actually properly convey the information, the important information that they need to get to their employees without, forgetting something or stressing out and just missing the mark because of the structure of the meeting that they're trying to hold?
Just practice. Start with your pre-meetings. We're going to have this conference. So the meeting that I'm going to have with my team is going to be on the platform that we're going to deliver for the conference itself. And I'll build a poll and I'll have them respond to it. We went through all the settings together because we wanted to make sure that if someone took a session with me or with one of my colleagues, that it looked and felt the same, that we were using the same tools and mechanisms. So I say just start, play with it, practice it. There are so many YouTube videos. There's so many, different how-tos or helps, but you really don't learn it, for me anyway, until I do it. So those meetings, we have a run through, a practice. We don't talk about everything, that we're going to say during the session, but you still have to plan. And as you're building your agenda, you realize, oh, it's going to take 15 to 20 seconds of a delay in order for my audience to hear the question and then respond to the poll. So I didn't build in that buffer time the first time, and I got to the end and I'm like, how am I running out of time? Because I didn't actually do all of the questions in the poll during my run through. So I say just start, trust your team, ask them, has anybody used this? My other tip would be talk to your technology department. We had people at a help desk as our backing. Is it Microsoft Teams? Is it Zoom? Is it, GoToMeetings? Because they're doing the same things. They might be able to sit in or be your co-host for the first time. I've had that question too. I'm a small district. I'm a one-man show. I don't have a co-host. Call me. There's people who will be willing to help you at least walk through it the first time. So just start.
Well, I know for me, because I've been working on a lot, developing some things, working on things, because virtual training is going to be a big. Actually, the interesting thing is, I actually do have 3 districts I'm going to speak at live over the next 2 weeks. But that, as far as my tip for people, as I'm kind of a one-man show in a lot of ways on different things, is I use PowerPoint a lot. I develop my presentation. I have a secondary monitor so that I can have my camera, I can see the stuff, but then I have a secondary monitor so I can follow my PowerPoint, because it's very different. It's when you start, I feel like I'm blessed in that I feel like I'm pretty good in front of a big group. It takes practice to get engaging and not mechanical in what you're doing. And I think that you do that because, there's only one of Jocelyn, so you can't help everybody. So that's practice is going to be the key, and getting familiar with the tool. What tool if I can throw a question out, which one of the tools have you found to be the simplest to work with? Zoom, GoToMeeting, Microsoft Teams, which have you found to be the?
That's what my technology department said. Hey, we have a pro account and we're using Zoom for our other, programs in the building. And so I think that's where you have to start, because when others are using it, it's supported. And then they have more now at this point, GoToMeetings, Microsoft Teams. But Microsoft Teams is a lot easier if everyone's within the network. But a lot of my school districts aren't on Microsoft Teams. So it's a whole different ball game, So I think they're all similar. I think the key is, what do you want out of the platform? You have to start with, do I want my participants to be able to ask me questions during the session? Okay, would you do it offline? Well, now you have it, but you can add on these things. So figure out what you want the session to include and how you want to interact with your audience. And that will help you kind of weed out the ones that aren't going to work for you.
Now, when we're talking about trainings, obviously on the school food handler side, we've put together a ton of different trainings on our website, and we've found that a good length for people to be able to squeeze a training in. Now, keep in mind, this is during the workday, so when they're doing trainings from our website, we try to keep them really short, 15 to 30 minutes in length. Now, I know that there's tons of training resources out there, everything from your master classes to I think it's the Quibi, and Linda, and all these different websites that offer trainings in various different capacities, but they're all different links. What do you find to be the most successful length for a virtual or online training in the industry that we're in?
Right. So really good question, because I was caught off guard by this one as well. So same thing. I started with my team. What do you all suggest? We have an internal team that works with teachers and principals and superintendents, and they're developing training for their audiences. And they say training, so whatever it is, 6-hour face-to-face, cut it in half. Okay, that's 3 hours. Now cut it in half again. So the maximum amount of time that I should spend on that 6-hour content face-to-face should be 90 minutes virtual. Oh, what? How am I going to do that? Right? How is that even possible? And so it was definitely a switch in mentality. But remember what I said earlier, they can get a lot of the content in advance. You can send me meaty stuff of scenarios and discussion, and you don't need to cover the basic stuff. because they've already either received that, or you can do it in a series. So the first one would be kind of an intro 101, and then you could break it up into 90-minute chunks. But really, and I heard this for face-to-face too, especially with activities. Our mind can't handle what our seat can't take. So if you are sitting, it's not getting absorbed in your mind because, you're just thinking about, oh, I should have went to the restroom. I have all these other things to do, that sort of thing. So take your
trainings that when I've done them, my grandmother always told me a very similar thing. She said, a mind can absorb as much as the bladder can endure. And I find that most of the time when I'm asked to speak for 2 or 3 hours, I'll say, well, we need to take a break every hour. Because I find that people at somewhere between an hour and 90 minutes, I start to lose the crowd. And then if we take a break, they come right back. So I couldn't agree more. And I think virtual training creates such an interesting challenge in
doing polls and surveys and things of that nature. And I know from experience with doing tons of live meetings from our company's standpoint, the information that you collect adds up quickly. What type of info specifically do you suggest asking your employees to give you feedback on? And what do you recommend doing with that information after the meeting's over?
So I've been working the last, year plus on food production records. Same concept. Why do we look back? We're just taking a shoot in the dark for what we're planning for future training. If we collect end of the training, even throughout the training, we can gauge where the audience is and tailor what we're doing in that next 15-minute chunk. If we do our end of course evaluation, which we're required to do, we have to prove that learning occurs in our sessions. That is part of training. Whether that's a poll or a post test or whatever, we can take that data and say, okay, they've got down the meal pattern. They know the meal pattern. They're great at the meal pattern. They're getting a little hung up on offer versus serve at breakfast in the classroom, or they need help with that kiosk, serving the grab and go at the kiosk. Okay, now we know what we can tailor and very specifically customize our next training for. So if we never look back at it, for one, we're going to lose credibility and trust with our audience because they're going to say, I told you that last time and you didn't do anything about it. So I think it's really important that we A, ask, but then B, follow through on listening. They also might ask a specific question that they're expecting to hear back from you on. So yes, it creates a little bit of follow-up work for us, but then we can have that one-on-one conversation and touch base with someone that we can, clear the water quickly. So I say you definitely have to calendar a debrief for the day after or maybe 2 days after. And I do this with my whole team. We review the follow-up together. If it's my training, I do with the co-hosts because I don't want to miss anything. And then I also think it's important that we give that feedback or the response or, we're going to have that in the next month's training communication pretty quickly after the training itself. But you have to calendar it or you won't have time. It'll just sit there. And then you'll get the alert. The recording's going to expire. Do you want to keep it? Yeah, I do. Download. Which is another key. Once you are doing a virtual training, hit record. So-and-so didn't make it to the meeting. You can send it to them. Orientation, you can give it to folks down the line. They all get the same information. Mm-hmm. It's really good.
I'll ask a follow-up. Do you see with training in ongoing, developing the culture of training over the course of a year? Obviously, we've got beginning of the year, in services, things like that. But as you're developing this culture, because we found in our company that if you can routinely reinforce training throughout the year in 15 to 20 to 25 minute snips across the year, just reinforce what you did at the beginning of the year with your team, then obviously they're going to retain it better. Plus, they're going to be better at what they do. But my question is this: when you do a kitchen, let's say a kitchen gathers around a computer, and you've got 5 or 6 people, which falls well below the social distancing thing. You got 5 or 6 people in a kitchen, and they gather around a computer and they watch a lesson, and they take the quiz collectively. Are you, because they're obviously going to have a discussion, and then if there's a quiz to complete, they complete the quiz collectively. How do you feel about that as far as being a tracking component and being something to verify that the learning has actually occurred?
So again, it's going to fall back on what does your district have for their own professional standards, policies, and procedures. For the state level, we recognize it as long as they document it. If they don't document it, it didn't happen. How they document it is how it happened. So I would still need some way for them to sign an attendance log, some way to, initial or verify, yes, I'm this person and I did this training. And then we have professional standards. Once they fill out our evaluation after the fact, then they can download their certificate from our website. Others, they just give it to them locally, right? So it all falls back on how you're documenting it. But yes, it counts. They were there. They did it, but they have to document it according to what their local and state regulations have.
So the USDA only requires that they have a record of attendance. You mentioned initialing something or signing that they were there. Is that sufficient in the eyes of Texas?
Yes. So good point. I'm not speaking for USDA.
Right. I know. Texas is different. I'm not different, but it's a state among.
But it is local. It's a local decision how they document what they're doing. We also like to see the course content. So whether it's the slides or the PowerPoint or what the training was, if it was virtual, maybe the agenda, so we can see the content that was covered. So yeah, what was it, who did it, and when was it done?
Okay. Yeah. And we've found that to be consistent also with a lot of the districts that we've been able to work with all of our course material and some of the various different varieties that we provided. Those print versions of the lesson content that we make available inside our training website come in handy with what you're talking about, because we have had several people print those off and then provide those as the justification for the course material that they went through, with it being the online format that we offer. Jocelyn, question for you as far as tools are concerned, with like training tools and things of that nature. Obviously, we've got a very unknown kind of situation going into this upcoming school year. Some people might have a very clear path as to what the school year is going to look like for them, but I think a lot of people are still trying to figure out what the next year is going to actually pan out to be. When we're looking at people potentially working from home, some people working in the kitchens, some people at home might not have a computer, they only are working off of a tablet or a smartphone device. What types of training tools and ongoing resources are available for folks that might be working strictly off of Wi-Fi in their home?
Yeah, it's a good question. A lot of things are compatible to mobile devices, tablets, laptops, desktops. They're all pretty much converting to some point to be usable on any of those. So regardless, I think you just keep making it available, and in the software itself should be able to meet the need. But yeah, we've used Google surveys, forms, we have Typeform, Mentimeter, Kahoot. I mean, there's so many, and there's so many that are being developed. The apps that are out there, you see more and more being developed all the time. So I even ask your group, ask your audience, ask your team, what have you used? What do you like? What should we try?
Right.
Yep.
Now, we're all aware of, ICN's resources, school nutrition's resources, and obviously every state department provides their own materials for various school districts to utilize throughout the course of the year. What other types of trainings are available online that would be appropriate for a school nutrition professional that would maybe spice things up, give a little bit of variety outside of the ICN, SNA, and some of the state department trainings that are provided?
Yeah, I mean, again, just like apps, there's so many avenues for training. I can get so down a rabbit trail of this to that to the next, to a meme, to a video, to a YouTube. Sanitation, is it health and wellness? Like, what is the goal that I'm trying to look for? And then actually what I start with is my social network of my colleagues, my Instagram, Facebook, all of my social networks. And I asked that group first, hey, I'm looking for a motivational something to start back to school, or I'm looking for a safety and sanitation tool that I can share, that's professionally put together to show how to wear a face mask. Oh, Bart, you have one on your website that I can download? Thank you so much. Right? So I start with that group first. Then I look at, it's kind of like when someone posts, what books are you reading, or any good books lately? It narrows down all of those things to like a few that I can research, because I don't have time to find all of the new ones or all of the latest and greatest. Right. But I trust my group. I trust my network, my fellow dietitian friends, my fellow child nutrition friends. So I start there, honestly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's been the response that I've heard from a lot of school nutrition professionals that we speak with. Just unfortunately, outside of a couple of more consolidated resources like ICN and SNA and what we feel like we've put together at School Food Handler, there's really isn't anything that clearly, I guess, consolidates all of the trainings that are out there that are specific to school nutrition professionals. But utilizing your social networks is a great tip. I love that one. While we're talking about social networks, I know of the School Nutrition Professionals Facebook group. Are there any other groups that people should be aware of to really tap into other people's expertise and the resources that other districts might have available?
Are you familiar with the School Meals That Rocks, the tips page?
Mm-hmm. Oh, so yeah, that's I know of that one.
Bill Hayes, pretty active there. Dietitians, of course, I'm in the school nutrition practice group with the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, and they have a whole nother platform that they have Q&A and questions and all of that sort of thing. So they're just dietitians that work in schools, and there's nearly 800 of them across the country. So they're very helpful in that world, and that's my world, really. I am attending cooperative to join, and so it's not content specific, it's the education world of delivering material nutrition director cohort last week, and they are looking for ways to pay their staff when they may have less meals to prepare. What are we going to pay them to do? How are we going to make use of that time? And training is one way that you can do that. And there's so many, resources out there for them to do that. So don't forget about training. If there's a downturn in participation, or you have people who have another hour at the end of their day, or they've prepped everything, make a training plan as a backup for them to have ready that they can use as a checklist to keep them fully trained on your staff.
Yeah. Well, in the last couple of minutes here, Jocelyn, one final question for you. Do you see the old version or I guess old model of training that we became so accustomed to, being in person and group style meetings? Do you see us ever going back to training?
Absolutely. We will go back. For some skills training, you cannot teach knife skills without putting a knife in someone's hand and coaching them on how to properly cut an onion. Those skills, hands-on coaching scenarios that you need to give immediate feedback on, they are going to return. They might be in smaller groups. They might be, one of my directors is going to go to each kitchen individually to do back to school training this year. What a lovely idea. They're going to go to them at their kitchen to do the training. And I absolutely do think we will go back face to face with those types of things. The benefit is we're going to nail this virtual side of things too. We're going to be able to do both. We're going to hybrid. We're going to say, you know what, counting and claiming, it can really be done online. They can drag and drop. We can test their knowledge. Boom. When we're face to face, we're going to get some team building, hands-on, down and dirty, like nitty gritty stuff that we couldn't achieve in that virtual world. So I think it'll start with what can be tackled virtually, check, check, check. And then, what did we kind of miss the mark on? What are we falling behind on that we need skills or hands-on or face-to-face training? And then we'll return to that. We'll fill in the gap there. That's my personal opinion.
And I think I think we have such a great opportunity. The people that are willing to do this is to get better at the virtual training. and get better at this face-to-face type of atmosphere, albeit on a computer, because I see so many trainings in other organizations. I don't name any, but they're child nutrition organizations that offer training, but they're long, they're PowerPoint slides, and there's no you talk. I think you said in one of your answers that people tune out in 8 to 12 minutes. It may be shorter than that for some of those. And I think that if we can get better at this, that we can tackle a lot of things virtually and have better tools for outside of just the PowerPoint, outside of just the presentations that people are used to doing, because I think this is going to be here for at least a year, and maybe a year and a half. And if we can because live training will come back. I have no doubt of that. It will come back. I'll be standing on the stage in front of a group sooner or later again. I know that. But in the interim, I have to get better at this new medium, which is just going to make me better and offer better tools to school nutrition groups. And I think that's the challenge: is are you willing to really get better at it, or are you just going to sit and read a script?
Yep.
Can I say one more thing about that? So please check the dates. Please make sure that the information that you're sharing is current. If you're going to share a video, watch the video in its entirety. We learned so much about just playing like Pandora. We wanted to have music going so that when our participants joined, they would hear music and know that their audio was working. When the audio is not working, all you get is questions about, is the audio working? I can't hear anything. So we tell them to do something, and we have the audio on, and then I have a commercial for a McDonald's Big Mac. Boo! I was like, I don't want commercials. So we found another way. We found, YouTube music, and we put our own playlists together, and you just live and learn. Oh, I have one more quick story. Can I share?
Sure.
I had a mower outside every Friday mowing the yard. My neighbor had this mower, right? And so I was like, okay, I have 2 boys. They're loud and crazy. So I kind of give them the heads up. Okay, on Thursday afternoon, I am going to be recording. Okay, we got it. And they're with the sitter, they're playing, they go outside, whatever. So Thursday afternoon, I'm ready. And I always record like maybe 10 minutes, hit stop, and go back and listen to make sure everything's good. Because the worst thing is you don't want to get 90 minutes down the road and then go, oh my gosh, there was this buzzing, or I didn't see that my hair was crazy or whatever. Okay, so 10 minutes in, I'm like, that mower is stinking loud. And what day is it? So I stand up and I look out my window here. It's my husband. What are you doing? He has a pool service company. He leaves early in the morning. I never see him all day. And he's like, well, I just wanted to get it done. I'm like, no, you cannot mow right now. So you plan everything, but something's going to happen. So have your, Wi-Fi backup, have your MiFi ready, have your second screen, but something will happen and it's okay. We're all human. Everyone's pretty forgivable. Do your best, smile, move on, and you live and learn. It's all good.
And remember to talk to all your boys beforehand. All the boys.
All of them.
That's right.
Yes, well, and have your tea, your water, use the restroom. Yeah, all those things.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for being on the show, Jocelyn. I really appreciate your time and your input. And Bart, same to you. Is there anything that either of you would like to close us out with?
Thank you so much for having me. I feel like it's not new information. Training is training, and you guys do great training. I mean, our child nutrition directors are so resourceful. There's a lot of free materials, and they share with each other. They share everything. So have a great school year. And obviously, if you need me or if you have a question, I'm absolutely willing to help in the future. But thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
I'd just add that we have got the greatest opportunity to have not only a group of people that we all know are heroes, that we've always known were heroes, and now the community knows the child nutrition are heroes, but we've got a real opportunity now to have the best trained child nutrition staffs in the country. if we'll just take advantage of the resources that are out there and the time that we're most likely going to have.
Yep, absolutely. Well, thank you both again for being on the show. It's been a pleasure to have you, Jocelyn, and we look forward to having you back on the show very soon next week at 12 o'clock Pacific Standard Time for another great episode. Take care, everyone, and have an awesome weekend.